The valley lay under a gray sky, shadowed by jagged cliffs that cut the sunlight into thin strips. Cracks ran through the ground, and broken trees lay scattered like forgotten memories. In this place the young dragons lived. Their wings were bent and uneven, their scales dull or cracked, and their claws too sharp or too small. They huddled together in dark corners, watching everything with wide, fearful eyes. The dragons had never known kindness. Every human who had come before carried weapons or loud voices. Every elder dragon who had tried to guide them had been harsh and demanding. Fear was the only lesson they understood, and they clung to it like a shield. The youngest, a small dragon with silver-tipped wings, shivered in a crevice, her chest rising and falling quickly. Her brothers and sisters circled nervously, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. High above the valley a human group approached. Their boots echoed on the stone paths, careful but loud enough to catch attention. The dragons stiffened at the sound. Some hissed, others crouched low ready to flee or strike. The humans stopped at the edge of the valley, scanning the ground with wary eyes. At the front of the group stood an old human veteran. His hair was white, his face lined with years of battle, and his hands were steady though worn. Unlike the younger humans, he carried no weapons. His uniform was simple, marked with the faded insignia of past campaigns. His eyes held a calm that seemed to cut through the tension like a warm light in cold stone. The dragons watched him. They had never seen a human who did not glare, shout, or hold a weapon. Their golden eyes flicked from him to the humans behind, then back again. Their wings twitched. Their claws scraped the stone. Every instinct screamed danger. The veteran stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, keeping his movements smooth and gentle. "I am not here to hurt you," he said in a soft, low voice. The sound carried across the valley, but it did not demand attention. It did not threaten. It merely existed like a calm river threading through the rocks. The smallest dragons in the corner tilted their heads, uncertain. They had never heard words like that directed at them. No human had ever spoken without anger or fear before. One young dragon, silver-winged and trembling, crept a step closer. Its wings brushed against the rock. Its tail twitched nervously. "Easy," the veteran said, kneeling slightly to lower himself. He did not rush. He did not reach for the dragon. He simply waited. His hand rested on his knee, open and relaxed. His eyes were soft. "I only want to help." Behind him, the younger humans shifted uncomfortably. "Sir," one whispered, "shouldn't we?" "Stay," the veteran replied calmly. "If we make sudden moves they will panic. Watch and wait." The dragons remained tense, muscles coiled and ready. Yet the calm voice, the gentle presence, held something strange. Curiosity. A flicker of interest where fear had always been. The veteran rose slowly and began walking toward the center of the valley. The dragons did not flee, though their wings twitched and tails lashed. The youngest crouched low watching. Others in the group followed cautiously, staying behind the veteran. No one made a sudden movement. No one spoke loudly. At the center of the valley, a young dragon with a cracked horn lay across the stone, staring at the humans with wide, fearful eyes. Its breath came fast, puffing mist into the cool air. The veteran knelt down at a distance, still keeping a safe space between himself and the creature. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "I am not your enemy." His voice was gentle, but it carried weight, not from force but from calm authority. The dragon blinked. It had never heard words like this before. Its small wings twitched. Its tail moved, uncertain whether to lash out or retreat. The veteran shifted slightly, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening. "I am here because I care," he said. "I have been where you are. I have known fear. But fear is not all you need to live." A soft wind moved through the valley, carrying the words across the stones. The silver-winged dragon crept closer again, then stopped. Its golden eyes locked on the veteran. There was fear there still, but also something new. Something it had never felt. "Good," the veteran said, nodding slowly. "That is curiosity. That is courage. You can trust it, little one. You can trust me." Other young dragons stirred at this. They inched closer, moving together in hesitant, cautious circles. Their wings quivered, tails swished nervously, but they did not flee. They watched. They waited. The veteran smiled faintly, holding his hand out in a relaxed gesture. "I will not harm you. I will not rush. I only wish to show kindness." Time passed slowly. The dragon's breathing slowed. The tension in their muscles eased slightly. Some began to stretch small wings, testing the air. Others nudged one another, sharing cautious glances. Fear had not vanished, but it had softened. The younger humans whispered to one another, amazed. They had expected panic. They had expected fire, claws, or flight. Instead they saw patience. They saw trust forming in the smallest way, in the eye of a single dragon, guided by an old human voice. The veteran remained kneeling, speaking softly, moving slowly, and waiting. He did not demand trust. He did not threaten. He did not touch. He simply existed as a presence that offered safety. By the time the sun began to dip behind the cliffs, casting long shadows across the valley, the dragons were still there. They had not attacked. They had not fled. They had only watched, learned, and felt something unfamiliar. The veteran looked across the valley at the dragons, at the humans, at the quiet stones that had held fear for so long. This is the first step, he said. It is small. It is fragile. But it is real. The silver-winged dragon, the smallest of them all, lifted its head a little higher, watching him carefully. Its wings stretched slowly. Its claws dug slightly into the stone. Fear was still there, but so was curiosity. And in that fragile moment, something powerful began to grow. The Valley of Shadows, once ruled by fear, had received a spark of hope. And it all began with the calm voice of a single old human who understood that kindness could reach places that force never could. The dragons had felt it. And in their own quiet, watchful way they began to trust. The morning mist hung low in the valley, curling around jagged rocks and broken trees. The young dragons shifted in the shadows, their eyes wide and cautious. They had slept little, for even in dreams they felt the echoes of fear. Fear of humans, fear of their own wings, fear of mistakes that could bring disaster. They huddled together in small clusters, trembling and silent. Every rustle of leaves, every shift of stone, sent them crouching lower, ready to flee. Far above, a small human party made its careful approach. Their boots crunched softly over the rocky terrain, careful to make minimal noise, yet each step was magnified in the still valley. Behind the leader, younger humans looked tense, their eyes darting to the hiding dragons. They whispered among themselves, voices low, filled with caution and uncertainty. At the front, walking steadily and alone, was the veteran. His back was straight but not rigid. His white hair gleamed faintly in the morning light. Lines etched his face, evidence of battles fought and won, of lessons learned the hard way. He carried no weapon, no armor heavier than a simple coat. His eyes were calm and steady, like still water in a stream. The dragons watched him. They had seen humans before, always carrying tools of destruction or voices that demanded submission. But this human moved differently. There was no rush, no glare, no tension that screamed threat. He moved slowly, deliberately, his steps measured. The youngest dragon, silver-tipped and trembling, peeked from behind a rock. Its claws dug into the stone. Its wings trembled nervously, brushing against one another as if to reassure themselves. Its eyes, wide with fear, were fixed on the veteran. The other dragons followed in cautious formation, their tails lashing, their muscles coiled, ready to bolt or lash out at any sudden motion. The veteran stopped a short distance from the largest cluster of dragons. He did not raise his hand. He did not speak immediately. He simply stood, calm and patient, letting the dragons take in his presence. "Good morning," he said softly after a few moments. His voice was low but clear. It carried across the stones without demanding attention. It did not shout, it did not threaten. It was simply there, gentle yet firm. The dragons stiffened at first, then hesitated. They did not retreat, but they did not approach either. They had never heard words like this directed at them. No human had ever spoken to them with calmness and patience. The veteran lowered himself slowly, bending his knees and letting himself sink closer to the ground. He did not kneel all the way, not yet. He kept a distance that was safe, respectful, and deliberate. His hand rested lightly on his knee, fingers loose and open. "I do not come to harm you," he said. "I do not demand anything. I'm not here to fight. I am here because I know fear, and I know that fear can be softened." The smallest dragons edged slightly closer, their curiosity sparking despite the fear. Their golden eyes followed the human carefully, noting every small movement. They twitched their wings nervously, unsure whether this calm figure was friend or threat. One young dragon, its scales dull with age or injury, stepped forward a few cautious inches. Its claws scraped lightly on the stone, and the veteran froze briefly, holding himself still to avoid alarming it. "Easy," he said, his voice like a gentle stream. "You're safe. I only wish to show kindness." The older humans behind him whispered among themselves, concern in their voices. "Sir," one said quietly, "they might attack if you—" "Then we wait," the veteran replied. His eyes did not leave the dragons. If we move too fast, we will only prove their fears correct. We must move with patience. The dragons' breathing slowed slightly. Their tails flicked with uncertainty, but they did not run. Their heads tilted, ears flicking as they considered the strange human before them. The veteran took a slow step closer, keeping his body low, his movements smooth. He did not reach out. He did not make a sound beyond his gentle voice. The dragons watched him, fascinated despite themselves. At the center of the cluster, the silver-tipped dragon crouched low. Its wings quivered, claws digging into the stone. Its eyes, wide with fear, were locked on the veteran. He did not flinch. He did not threaten. He only looked back, calm and steady. "You have known fear," the veteran said softly. "I have known fear too. I know what it feels like to be afraid of what you cannot control. But fear is not all you are. It is only a part of you. There is more inside, more than fear. And I am here to help you see that." The dragon's small wings twitched again. It inched forward, testing the air. Its golden eyes flicked between the veteran and the humans behind him. Others followed, slowly, cautiously, one step at a time. The veteran smiled faintly, keeping his body low, hands open and visible. "Good," he said. "Curiosity is a start. Courage is another. Both are yours to choose." Minutes passed in silence, punctuated only by the wind rustling through broken branches. The dragons shifted slightly, wings stretching, tails moving, bodies relaxing just a little. They were still alert, still wary, but fear no longer ruled them completely. The younger humans began to relax as well, seeing the change. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Engineers and medics watched in awe. No one had ever seen the dragons respond to kindness, rather than fear or threat. The veteran stood a little straighter, though still careful not to intimidate. "This is only the first step," he said. "Small and fragile, yes, but it is real. You have chosen to watch. You have chosen to consider. That is progress." The silver-tipped dragon raised its head slightly higher, its wings stretching in small, careful movements. Its tail flicked, not in panic but in testing. Other dragons mirrored it, curiosity mixing with caution. The Valley of Shadows, long ruled by fear, had seen a new presence. The veteran human's calm voice, steady movements, and patient heart had begun to change the young dragon's world. Slowly, quietly, they began to believe that there might be safety in the presence of humans. And in that fragile, tense, and quiet morning, the veteran had shown them that kindness could reach even the most fearful hearts. The morning light crept over the jagged cliffs, spilling into the valley like a soft glow. The young dragons stirred in their hiding places, watching the veteran human from a distance. He had spent the past day moving slowly among them, speaking softly and never forcing contact. His presence had begun to change something deep inside them. Fear was still there, but it was no longer the only thing they felt. The veteran walked carefully, his boots crunching lightly on the stone. In his hands he carried small tools, not weapons. He moved toward a broken nest, its twigs splintered and scattered. One young dragon, silver-tipped and hesitant, watched him from the edge of a rock. Its wings twitched nervously. "I will fix this," the veteran said softly, kneeling and arranging the twigs with gentle care. "You shouldn't have to live in broken things." The dragon blinked, tilting its head. It had never seen a human touch anything so carefully. It stepped closer, one cautious claw in front of the other. Its wings twitched, but it did not flee. Nearby, a small group of dragons watched from a distance. They were still wary, still trembling with uncertainty. But their eyes followed every movement. The veteran's hands were steady. His voice was calm. And nothing around them burned. The veteran finished repairing the nest and stepped back slowly, letting the dragons inspect his work. The silver-tipped dragon crept forward, sniffing at the twigs. It circled the nest, testing it with careful taps of its claws. Then it settled inside, curling its small body against the softened twigs. A murmur of surprise ran through the other dragons. They had never experienced something fixed, cared for, without fear or punishment. Their golden eyes widened. The veteran smiled softly, kneeling again but keeping a safe distance. "I will not hurt you," he said. "Everything I do is to help, not to harm." Some of the dragons edged closer, testing the air, testing the ground, testing him. Others stayed back, still uncertain. One young dragon with a cracked horn shuffled toward a small pool of water. Its wings fluttered, unsteady. The veteran knelt beside it, holding out a shallow dish. Water gleamed in the sunlight. "Drink if you like," he said. "No one will stop you." The dragon's golden eyes flicked to him. Its tail twitched, claws scraping the stone nervously. Then slowly it lowered its head and drank. The veteran did not move. He only watched quietly, letting the dragon feel safe. Nearby, another dragon with bent wings shifted slightly. The veteran noticed and placed his hand gently on a smooth stone, signaling nothing but calm presence. "Take your time," he said softly. "You are safe here." Over the next hours, Small Axe continued. He repaired nests, cleared paths of loose rocks, and moved broken branches to safe places. Each gesture was quiet, careful, and deliberate. Each small act showed the dragons that humans could be gentle. That humans could help rather than hurt. One young dragon, the smallest of all, crept closer than the rest. It touched its nose to the veteran's boot, sniffing cautiously. The veteran froze, keeping still, and whispered, "Good. That is courage." The dragon's siblings watched. Their fear did not vanish, but it softened. They nudged one another, curious, testing what they had never been allowed to test before. The veteran's actions were small, yet each one carried weight. The dragons noticed patterns. The humans did not raise their hands in threat, they did not shout, they did not demand obedience. Slowly the dragons began to explore. They moved their wings more, stretched their tails, and even played lightly among themselves while keeping watch on the veteran. The veteran spoke softly, explaining nothing that could frighten them. "Courage does not mean fighting," he said. "Courage means facing fear and still choosing to act kindly." The dragons blinked at the words, though they did not fully understand them. They felt the meaning in the tone, in the steady presence, in the calm. Trust was growing slowly, like a fragile seed. By midday, some dragons were moving openly, circling the repaired nests, testing the small clear paths the veteran had made. He watched them, adjusting positions when needed, never rushing, never forcing. Every step encouraged confidence, not fear. One larger dragon, its scales dull and worn, approached him slowly. Its wings drooped nervously. The veteran knelt in place, letting it see that his hands were empty. "I mean no harm," he said. "You are free to step back if you choose. Or step forward. The choice is yours." The dragon inched forward, brushing its tail against the veteran's knee. The veteran did not flinch. He only smiled faintly and whispered, "Good. That is trust." A hush fell over the other dragons. They had never seen this before. Trust was something foreign. Fear had been constant, unquestioned, unyielding. And now, in quiet gestures and careful patience, they were beginning to see another way. By the time the sun hung high in the sky, several dragons were exploring openly, moving between the veteran and the safe spaces he had created. Their wings twitched, tails flicked, but the panic was gone. Their eyes followed him with curiosity instead of dread. The veteran stepped back, observing quietly. The dragons had not touched him yet, not completely. But their proximity, their willingness to stay, their cautious movements all showed progress. Fear was still present, but it was no longer the only feeling. Small Axe had made a big impact. Repairing nests, clearing paths, offering water, and speaking softly, these gestures began breaking barriers that fear had built for years. The silver-tipped dragon, once trembling and alone, now moved with careful confidence. It circled the veteran once, then returned to its siblings. Its wings stretched, claws tapped lightly, and its eyes glimmered with curiosity. The veteran spoke again softly. "Every small step matters. Every gesture counts. Trust grows one action at a time." The dragons listened in their own way. They could not understand all his words, but they understood his presence. They began to feel a fragile sense of safety. And in that quiet valley, where fear had ruled for too long, the first real signs of trust had begun to grow. Small acts, gentle hands, and calm words had made a difference. The dragons would never forget them. And for the first time they glimpsed a life where humans were not just feared but could be trusted. The valley was quiet in the early morning, but the calm was fragile. The young dragons had begun to trust the old human veteran, following him cautiously, exploring the cleared paths, and accepting his presence without panic. Yet the shadows of the past were not gone. Beyond the cliffs, the older humans and the elder dragons had gathered, watching from a distance. They remembered the valley as a place of fear and chaos, and they had come expecting battle. The veteran sensed their presence immediately. He paused near the repaired nests, looking up at the cliffs where the figures were silhouetted against the morning sky. Some carried tools, others weapons. They whispered and gestured, unsure of what they would find. The veteran raised his hands slightly, signaling them to hold. "No sudden moves," he said softly. "They need time. We all need time." The young dragons sensed the tension immediately. Their wings twitched. Their claws scraped the stone nervously. They had grown accustomed to the veteran's calm, but these new figures radiated the fear and command they had always known. A few of the silver-tipped dragons huddled closer together, shaking slightly. The veteran knelt, lowering himself to the dragon's level. "Do not be afraid," he said, voice steady. "I am here. You are safe." He gestured gently toward the newcomers. "They are watching, but they will not hurt you if we remain calm." The elder dragons above the cliffs circled slowly, their massive shadows falling across the valley floor. They had seen humans before, and they remembered the fear and the pain that often followed. Some of the young dragons instinctively crouched, ready to flee or lash out. "Watch," the veteran whispered to the dragons, his voice carrying reassurance. "See, they are observing, not attacking. We will show them another way." One of the elder dragons descended slightly, its wings stirring the air, causing a light gust over the valley floor. The young dragons froze, tense and wary. The veteran held his hands open, palms visible, keeping his movements calm and deliberate. "Breathe," he said softly. "Stay grounded. This is only observation." The humans behind the veteran began to relax, seeing that the dragons did not panic. Some stepped forward slowly, adjusting to the new calm. The veteran's presence had created a protective boundary. Fear did not pass through him. The silver-tipped dragon, braver than most, crept forward. Its siblings followed, wings twitching nervously. The veteran kept his eyes on them, not on the observers. "Curiosity is stronger than fear," he said. "It grows when we nurture it." Suddenly, a shadow passed overhead. One of the older dragons swooped closer to the valley floor, eyeing the young ones. A low, warning sound vibrated through the air. The young dragons froze completely, tails lashing, wings trembling. The veteran remained still. "You are safe," he said firmly, his voice carrying through the tension. "I will not let harm come to you. Stand your ground if you must, but do not flee blindly. Trust yourself." Slowly the young dragons began to respond. The silver-tipped one stepped forward, then backward, testing the ground and the space around it. Its courage encouraged the others. One by one they began to stretch their wings, circling slightly, still alert but no longer paralyzed by fear. The veteran observed quietly. He knew this moment was critical. The young dragons were learning that fear could be faced, that patience and calm could coexist with the unknown. They were beginning to see that trust was not weakness. The elder dragons above circled again, closer this time. One of the older humans spoke, clearly uneasy. "Sir, they might attack. Should we intervene?" "Watch first," the veteran replied. "We do not interfere unless there is true danger. Let them choose their actions." The young dragons, sensing that no immediate threat existed, began to move more confidently. They explored the repaired nests, touched the shallow pools, and sniffed at small rocks along the path. Their wings lifted slightly with each careful step, tails flicking with cautious curiosity. Then the silver-tipped dragon did something unexpected. It approached the veteran and nudged his hand lightly with its snout. The veteran remained still, letting the gesture happen without reacting too quickly. "Good," he whispered. "That is trust. That is courage." The other young dragons watched closely. Their eyes flicked between the veteran and their small companion. Slowly, some inched forward, testing him with gentle movements. No wings lashed. No claws struck. Fear was still present, but it no longer ruled their choices. The veteran spoke softly to them, guiding their movements without forcing them. "You have learned patience," he said. "You have learned that presence is stronger than fear. And you have learned that even those who watched from the shadows can see the truth without harming you." One of the elder dragons descended to a safe distance, studying the scene. Its massive golden eyes scanned the humans and young dragons. It lowered its head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement rather than aggression. The young dragons took note, their courage growing. The humans behind the veteran whispered in astonishment. "They are responding, not with fear but with curiosity." "Yes," the veteran replied softly. "They are learning that fear does not have to dictate action. And that is a powerful lesson." Time passed slowly in the valley. The young dragons explored more openly, still cautious but confident enough to test their limits. The veteran remained a calm anchor, guiding them with quiet words and gentle movements. The old shadows of the cliffs, the watching humans, and the elder dragons had not broken their trust. The silver-tipped dragon, its siblings now nearby, lifted its wings fully for the first time in days. The veteran observed, smiling faintly. "Every small choice matters," he said. "Every act of patience, every calm word, every safe gesture adds up. This is how trust grows. This is how fear loses its power." By evening, the valley was filled with quiet life. The young dragons moved with more confidence, exploring their surroundings and even approaching the veteran without fear. The old humans and elder dragons, once expecting chaos, observed silently, witnessing the shift that had begun. The veteran stood at the center watching over them. He knew the shadows of the past had not disappeared completely, but the young dragons had faced them. They had begun to choose courage over instinctive fear. The valley, once ruled by panic and retreat, was now a place where kindness had begun to rewrite the rules. And in that quiet, powerful moment, the young dragons realized something remarkable. They were no longer trapped by fear. They had a choice. And that choice, guided by calm hands and a patient voice, could change everything. The valley had changed. The once dark corners where young dragons had huddled in fear were now filled with movement and soft sounds of life. Wings stretched openly. Tails flicked with curiosity instead of panic. The young dragons explored the repaired nests, the cleared paths and the shallow pools of water, testing each step with growing confidence. The fear that had ruled their world for so long had softened, replaced by cautious trust and the thrill of discovery. The old human veteran walked among them calmly, his steps slow and deliberate. His white hair glimmered faintly in the morning sun, and his lined face held a gentle smile. He carried no weapons, no tools of control. His only presence was patience and guidance. Each movement was measured, careful not to frighten the dragons, but always showing safety and respect. The silver-tipped dragon, braver than the rest, circled around him. Its wings lifted and fell gracefully, testing the air, its golden eyes bright with curiosity. It had grown from trembling fear to cautious exploration, a transformation that drew quiet pride from the veteran. He knelt slightly, letting the dragon feel safe in his calm presence. "Good," he whispered softly. "This is courage. This is trust." Other dragons watched and began to mimic its movements. They stepped forward, sniffing the air, brushing against repaired stones, stretching their wings against the warm light. Small gestures, once impossible, became natural. The valley no longer felt like a cage. It was a space of learning, of freedom, and of understanding. Above, elder dragons circled, their massive wings casting shadows on the valley floor. They observed silently, their golden eyes studying every movement. They had expected chaos, fire, and panic. Instead, they witnessed calm, cautious exploration, guided by an old human who carried no threat. Slowly, the elders lowered their heads, acknowledging the change. The young dragons were learning something no battle could teach: trust and kindness. Humans who had come with the veteran also watched, learning from his example. Soldiers, medics, and engineers had once approached the dragons with fear or expectation of aggression. Now they observed quietly, keeping their distance, letting the dragons move freely. Some whispered in astonishment. "I've never seen them respond like this," one said. "Not to weapons. Not to orders. Only to patience." The veteran smiled faintly. "Strength is not always in force," he said. "It is in knowing when to guide gently. It is in showing care when everyone expects fear. This is how understanding grows." As the sun rose higher, the valley felt warmer. The young dragons were more confident. They explored the edges, climbed small rocks, and even approached the humans who had once been strangers. The veteran stayed at the center, a calm presence, never forcing interaction but allowing trust to grow naturally. One of the larger young dragons, its scales dull from past injuries, stepped close to the veteran. It lowered its head slightly, touching him gently with its snout. The veteran remained still, letting the gesture happen without interruption. "Good," he whispered. "You choose kindness too." The silver-tipped dragon nudged its siblings, encouraging them. Slowly, the rest approached, testing the boundaries of trust. Each movement was careful, cautious, yet filled with curiosity. The veteran watched quietly, understanding that the dragons were learning far more than he could teach with words alone. By afternoon, the valley was alive with movement. Dragons flew in small arcs, testing their wings. They touched and explored objects that had once seemed dangerous. They played gently with one another, learning coordination and balance, all under the watchful, calm eyes of the veteran. Even the smallest dragon, once trembling and hiding, now hopped lightly across the stones, tail flicking with excitement. The elder dragons above began to descend slowly, coming closer without menace. They observed the humans and the young dragons together, wings flapping gently, casting long shadows across the valley. Their presence was no longer threatening. Instead, it was an acknowledgement of growth. The young dragons had learned that fear did not have to control their actions. They had discovered a different way to interact, one built on trust and understanding. The veteran stood tall, looking across the valley. The young dragons scattered before him, not in panic but in exploration. The valley had become a place where learning and patience triumphed over instinctive fear. He knew this was only the beginning. The lessons of kindness, patience, and calm presence would continue to spread, shaping both dragons and humans alike. The older humans who had observed from the cliffs now stepped down carefully, guided by the veteran's example. They approached slowly, keeping their hands visible, voices low, and movements gentle. The young dragons watched closely, some approaching curiously. There was no panic, no flight. Only observation and tentative trust. The veteran spoke softly to both dragons and humans. Strength is not in domination. It is in patience. It is in care. It is in showing that kindness is stronger than fear. The silver-tipped dragon hopped forward, nudging the veteran again, and then turned to nuzzle its siblings. The others followed, and soon, all the young dragons were moving freely, exploring the valley without hesitation. Their trust had grown not from fear or force, but from the gentle guidance of a patient presence. As evening approached, the sun cast long, warm rays across the valley. The young dragons flew in arcs, landed softly, and circled each other playfully. The veteran watched quietly, knowing that the seeds of understanding had taken root. Fear still existed, but it no longer ruled their hearts. Instead, curiosity, courage, and trust were taking hold. The elder dragons above slowly returned to the skies, circling the valley in quiet approval. The humans stood nearby, learning from the veteran, understanding for the first time that cooperation and compassion could achieve more than force ever could. In that moment, the valley was transformed. The young dragons, once trapped by fear, had learned the first lessons of trust. The humans, once cautious and unsure, had learned the power of patience and kindness. And the veteran, who had spent a lifetime knowing fear and war, understood that his greatest victory was not in battle, but in creating a space where understanding could flourish. The valley, once a place of shadows and fear, had become a home of learning and growth. The young dragons explored, played, and trusted. The humans observed, guided, and learned. And the old veteran, standing among them, knew that a new era had begun, one where fear no longer ruled and kindness had the power to change everything. In the quiet of the evening, as the sun dipped behind the cliffs, the dragons settled gently among the repaired nests. Their wings folded comfortably, their tails relaxed, and their eyes glimmered with newfound trust. The veteran knelt beside them, smiling softly, knowing that the future held hope. A new era of understanding had begun, and it was stronger than any shadow that had come before.